Joining me now is North Light Asset Management Chief Investment Officer, Chris Zaccarelli. Chris, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. How would you assess the earnings period so far and what you're hearing from companies about 2025 business?
Yeah, absolutely. We're about 60% of the way through the S&P 500 reporting season. We've had, revenue gains of about 1% above expectations. So revenue surprised about 1%, but earnings are surprising about 6.5% above what expectations are. So far it's been a pretty good earnings season. It hasn't, blown it out of the water, but it's done pretty well. Looking forward, I think companies are continuing to be a little bit more cautious. They're forecasting gains. They see a strong consumer, although one that they worry is weakening a little bit on the lower end. But I think they're also a little bit wary about what will happen with tariffs. Clearly President Trump has used tariffs to good effect so far this year. He's using them in a very strategic way, but there are some risks associated with it, and there could be some winners and losers. So we are seeing a little bit of caution when it comes to companies guiding for what the rest of the year will look like. But so far, I think it's a cautiously optimistic tone.
We got this bid from Elon Musk on OpenAI this morning making headlines. I want to take a look at AI stocks. They're lower this morning, but of course they've had quite a run. Elon Musk leading a group of investors in a nearly $98 billion bid to acquire control of OpenAI. It could complicate CEO Sam Altman's plans of converting it to a for-profit company. Altman is not having it. He responded to a post from Musk about OpenAI's direction, writing this: "No, thank you, but we will buy Twitter for $9.74 billion if you want." Moving the decimal point there. Musk is wanting OpenAI for $97 billion, and he says, "I'll buy Twitter for 9.7." It's not even the name of the company anymore, so that right there is an insult, Chris. Obviously, these two guys knew each other, don't like each other. They were partners. They both founded OpenAI back in 2015. But then 3 years later, Elon Musk walked away. Your reaction?
Yeah, so look, what it really illustrates is how important artificial intelligence is. It's going to be one of the most groundbreaking technologies going forward. It's something that's very important from not only a military point of view, but also looking across industries. We're already seeing some breakthroughs in healthcare, and clearly the idea of using a computer to have some type of artificial intelligence in terms of doing the research, making suggestions, could potentially become a bigger part of our lives. Clearly there's some bad blood between Elon and Sam Altman, but at the end of the day, despite the fact that maybe they're joking a little bit back with each other, I think Elon is serious about this being an important technology, and I think it just reflects where we are in terms of the business cycle and where we are in terms of technological progress. It is going to be a big story for many years to come, and this is just one example of people starting to talk about what's the value potentially in some of the market leaders.
So as an investor, how do you play it? You want to buy NVIDIA? Do you want to buy these AI chip stocks? How do you want to invest around AI then, from your standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, as far as from an investment point of view, AI has been a big story, as we've mentioned. You start off with the semiconductor chips, a lot of great examples, whether that's NVIDIA, Qualcomm, looking at some of the chip making companies like ASML or TSMC. I think that's where you start. Then you move on to the software side of things, and you're looking at whether that's Microsoft, Google, potentially Palantir. I think Palantir is a great example of where companies are moving from where you can invest on the chip side to investing on the software side. And I think that's the future, is looking a little bit more at software and where AI will have its greatest breakthroughs, not necessarily in the building blocks, which have already created a lot of value. And I think a lot of the great investment returns are in the rearview mirror, not necessarily going forward as far as the chips are concerned.
Chris, we've got the Fed on Capitol Hill this week. Yields this morning look like this, as Chairman Jay Powell will be on Capitol Hill today and tomorrow for the semi-annual testimony on the state of the economy. This is always closely watched. The yield on the 10-year right now at 4.5%. The New York Fed Consumer Survey yesterday showed consumers are expecting long-term inflation to tick higher, even before President Trump announced tariffs on the country's biggest trading partners, Chris. So most people expect inflation to stay elevated for some time. What are you expecting from Jay Powell in his Humphrey Hawkins testimony beginning today?
Yeah, I think, Chairman Powell is really going to try to leave some optionality for the Fed. I mean, ultimately, the Fed was cutting rates heading into this year. They put that on pause. I think ultimately their goal for this year is to watch and wait. They're going to see what's going to happen with tariffs. They're going to see what happens with inflation as it filters through the economy. They've stated over and over again that 2% is their goal, not 2.9%, not 2.8%. So at this point, they've got a really difficult job cut out for them. I think there's going to be increasing pressure on Powell and the Fed to cut rates to keep the economy going, to the extent that we're seeing some weakness in unemployment, or you're seeing, again, the lower end of the consumer start to weaken. On the other hand, they really need to keep inflation in check. And so while I think they would like to cut rates, I think they're in a position where they're going to be on hold. There is always that outsized possibility that later down the line, they may need to raise rates again. But I think the Fed, all things being equal, would love to keep rates the same and at some point start cutting. But at this point, it's too early for them to make that determination. And I think you're going to see Powell continue to over and over again to almost evade questions as to what the Fed's going to do, and just say, we're keeping an eye on the data as it comes in, keeping an open mind. But he'll continue to, I think, focus on the fact that inflation is a top priority for them, and they haven't taken their eye off the ball. That's what I would do if I were him.
All right, Chris, we'll be watching. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Chris Zaccarelli on markets and the broader economy.